LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. My name is Lydia Khalil. Thank you for watching, for listening, for subscribing, the comments. I am so grateful. And for people who say the programs are making a difference, they're learning a lot, they're able to help themselves more, especially I think, than helping others, because we have to know ourselves and then we can help our fellow brother or sister or a family member. Today I've got a lady who we are going to talk about personality types. We're going to talk especially about the introverts. Please help me welcome Patricia.
Hi.
Hi, Patricia. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to join me today on this program. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I read we always ask for a little bio, but you had warned me that yours was long, but it was really, really detailed. It sort of gave me a better insight of you. So, well, I'm going to leave you to share about who you are, and then we'll go into the conversations. I will refer back to it, but just let everybody know who you are.
Yes, thank you again for having me. Sometimes I do get called different things, and so I heard you say Patricia, so I just wanted to say my name is Patience Ogunbona. And the Ogunbona part is actually something that people never really get, and they tend to apologize first of all before they start saying it. And I just say, don't worry about it. I struggle with some names as well. Anyway, so I'm Patience Ogunbona, and I'm excited to be here. I'm also known as the Visionary Introverted Woman. And the reason is because my passion is empowering introverted female entrepreneurs and leaders to overcome self-doubt and fear of judgment, as well as performance issues, thereby helping them to develop mindset and business strategies that allow them to build an aligned business that would leverage their strengths in the marketplace to create presence, positioning, and profit. One of the great things I like is the fact that I can champion the cause for introverts like myself. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I think I must have even sent you a message saying, Patricia, I'm really sorry. I normally don't get it that wrong. Welcome. I must have had Patricia in my mind, not Patience. So you've talked about yourself professionally, but give us a little insight as to who you are.
I always say that introversion gives me purpose. And the truth is, this was not always the story, because before I knew that I was introverted, I always felt like the world was an odd place to live. But as the very popular Carl Jung, who is very well known in the field of personality research and science, says, he says that he who looks outside dreams, but he who looks within awakens. So when I discovered that I am an introvert, it just felt like the light went on, and I was meant to bring that awakening and that light to many people. And so for me, from a very early age, there are many things that people identify with introverts, and I've been through a few of them. Maybe being shy. I wasn't necessarily shy, but the truth about it was, depending on my environment, I had to curtail who I was until now that I'm very out there doing stuff, and people say, oh, you're everywhere, you cannot be an introvert. And I say, well, some introverts make sure that the message is bigger than the messenger. So that is what puts me out there. That's what makes me go out there. I work with introverted women to help them develop that presence. So it's not just being seen, but making a difference, having an impact, being brought to the table to have your own voice being heard as well. That's what I refer to as presence. So yeah, so that's me. I'm a mother of two outside of work. And that is what I call my non-negotiable is my family. So I've been married for 24 years and I'm a mother of two. And I'm very excited about that part of my life because it's the big part of my life.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So how did you, because I read that you're an accountant, you're an auditor. So how does an auditor move all the way from numbers into the field? Well, I think this is an additional field, but how did you start there and then sort of get here?
Yes. Okay. So what I didn't say was my many titles, like you said. So I did do, in the early years of my life, I did do accounting, and then I qualified as a chartered accountant. Then I decided that figures were not my thing because, contrary to what people think, introverts do like people. So I love people. And I felt like the field that I wanted to specialize in was internal audit. So I moved into internal audit. And there again, I became a chartered internal auditor. But as you go on in life, you can recognize sometimes that there's something missing, that there is elements of your potential that you need to develop. So up until 2017, I was working in the corporate world in the city as an internal auditor, internal audit manager. And I wouldn't say that I hated my job necessarily. People would make it difficult, yes. So I always say people don't leave jobs, they leave people. So if people cap your potential, then you find it difficult to stay in a space where you are not fulfilling your potential, especially if you realize your potential. So as at the moment, I call myself an aligned business strategist and a transformational coach, licensed and certified transformational coach, a DISC expert, and an emotional intelligence expert. So I made that transition and started off with my business, ATI Coaching, fully in 2018, because I felt like that's the element of my potential that I wanted to answer the question, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? At that point was doing things with people, making a difference, coaching, training, adding value to people. So that's how I made that transition, and I'm here today.
Okay, so quite an interesting journey, coming from the numbers world into exploring personalities, helping people actually discover who they are, because I think sometimes the world wants us to be one way and we are the other way, and then we can actually clash. So interesting. Like most therapists, sometimes we're triggered by something. So something happens for us. And when we've gone through that experience, whether it's from childhood or something bigger as we got older, or not bigger, but something else happens along the journey of life. So did anything lead you towards this journey, or how did you sort of think, oh, okay, I trained to be an accountant, but there is something else beyond that?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things. So first and foremost, I think in my early 30s, fortunately, I discovered I was introverted. But alongside that came all the challenges that you could have, challenges like maybe shrinking into the background. I had low self-esteem issues. I felt like the odd one out, especially when I want to go and spend time away to really, then I didn't know it was needing to recharge. I know a lot about it now, feeling that my energy was depleted and all that stuff. So it was during that period that I had a very, very insightful manager who put me through coaching. You know, I asked for a confidence class, and she let me sign up. And when I signed up, I saw this vibrant lady coming to do the coaching, the training session on confidence. And I remember her very well, red hair, red suit. And it was seeing her and having that real connection with her. Something said to me within my spirit that this is who you are meant to be, someone like this lady. And at the time, lacking confidence and self-esteem, all I could think was, can I ever be like this? You know, it was really tough. But then after that as well, I went to my manager and I said, I really would want to do more on this. She's opened my eyes. And one of the things she said to me, because I went to her and I said, I really feel like the world is an odd place for me and I don't fit in. And what she said was, if it's going to be, it's up to you. And I remember that statement very well. If it's going to be, it's up to you. So the next phase was to go to my manager and say, I've noticed that there's a 12-week coaching program on mindset and change, and I want to go for it. And she signed up again for it. So I'm really blessed. But those things made me have a taster of the difference between training and experience and the power of coaching. And you know how you sow a seed and you keep watering it. So over the years, and that was over 15 years ago, I was watering this seed. And gradually, when I started feeling uncomfortable and I signed up with the John Maxwell team, that was what really, and I signed up then at a critical moment in my life where I felt like I needed to make a pivotal decision when my mom died and I was depressed. And I felt like what will honor her legacy is to go ahead and find something that was purposeful and meaningful to me. And it brought that back. And so exploring being in the John Maxwell team, where I'm now an executive director and a member of the Presidential Advisory Council, led me on this pathway that I am now to continue to discover my potential. And in 2020, I then niched down to work purposefully with introverted women because I recognized my own struggles at the time related to some elements of the challenges that introverts go through.
Okay, I think, you know, what stood out for me, well, a lot of things, but what I came first was you saying this accountant, this somebody who'd gone so much training, somehow didn't have the confidence she felt she needed, or didn't feel like she was in the best fit for herself, which means that, yeah, I'm sure somebody else who is watching or listening is thinking, oh, okay, that's me, because we assume that when we go through, you know, that kind of professional training, which takes a lot, then we are in the fullness of ourselves. Let me use it, you know, that would be the best fit. But you're saying after all of that, I got to a place in life, I lost mom, became depressed, though I think that lady had given you something to remember. So I think it's important also for us, what stood out for you was that your instinct came out. You know, you saw this lady and saw what she did, and you felt in yourself there was, for one, let me use a word we all love, a witness in you saying, okay, this feels like the correct way to go. And I think why I'm sort of stopping here is, I think a lot of times we don't rely enough on that feeling that we get, because it must have felt, maybe not for you, maybe I'm assuming that resonation, that seeing that woman, because she was so different from where you were in terms of work, not as a woman, but in terms of work, and thinking, yes, she feels like that's the place I want to be. She's where I want to be, but I'm somewhere completely different, and it will be a new start. Yeah, so you have to start all over again. And let me ask before I ask all the many questions I have, like, how, was that scary? Was that scary for you?
It was, but
Because we know your manager was good because you got at least a few weeks, a few
yeah,
courses free.
yeah. I think the truth about it is the final leap was my own decision and a huge investment to join the John Maxwell team. So in terms of scary, there are some phrases that I heard over the course of my group that have helped. One of them is "do it afraid." I have a mentor, Joyce Meyer. She's well known for saying "do it afraid," And another one was "jump and grow your wings on the way down." And if you jump and you don't have wings and you're growing them, it is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. A purposeful life is uncomfortable. And fear is always around us. I always say to people, what fear is saying to you is asking you a question. And because I handle fear as a question, I tend to say, yes, I have done all the things I need to do for us to be safe. Is that okay? Let's do this. So one of the things I know is that people don't give themselves permission to explore. The worst that could happen is that you feel that it's not the right path. My certificates are still there in my box. There is nobody that will argue that I have those certificates, that sometimes I still do my continuous professional development, because if I feel this is the wrong path, I can always go back. But without exploration and discovery, you are unable to identify your hidden potential. We all have it, and we all yearn from the within. Another phrase I like is where one of my mentors says, the Spirit of God within us seeks fuller expression because He is omnipresent, He is abundant and big, So there is a lot more over our lifetime that we can discover, but we can cap it and stay in the comfort zone, because growth comes in form of challenge rather than in form of enjoyment and dancing. Yeah. So you have to take it on board. So that is for me what led to my taking the leap. But my mom's death, I looked at her life. That was a significant thing. My mom died young. So when I say young, relatively in her 60s, when she was supposed to now be raving and living, because my mom was very active. But I looked back and I saw she had legacy. She had worked in the corporate world. She switched from being a nurse to HR, but she was a business person, built properties. She left so much of a legacy that you could point to. And I started to ask myself, okay, it's painful that she's not here, but I remember that what if she died now and did not have anything that we could say this is her legacy beyond her certificate? And that challenged me, and I thought, I want to also build on her legacy. And that became a driving force for me to lose the fear and move forward.
Okay. So I think Mom's death was a catalyst for you, a catalyst for change. And I think what we are touching on, fear, challenge, growth, learning to grow wings on the way down. That sounds really scary. But I think what I'm hoping is to invite people, I say to clients, you have to engage with your fear. It's not something you just put away and then hope it will go away, or anytime you feel it, then you do something to numb the fear. So really, when it's time to change, to grow, because I say, if you don't want to change, if people say to me, oh, I don't change, that's the way I am, I just think, okay, does that mean you are dead? Because growth and change go together, and we must always be prepared for change, always be prepared to grow. And those things don't come easy. They must come at the cost of challenging your fear and engaging with it, which is what you said. I make sure that what I'm doing is safe. I feel safe. But does that mean say now somebody wants to go to school, they don't have the money, or they're married and they've got young children. Now, I'm just throwing this out. What would safety feel like, maybe for that person?
So,
not that it's exact science, but just
well, I guess
I would imagine the fear.
Yeah.
They would have the fear already.
So I guess that's where, now that I'm here looking back, they say we live forwards, but we understand backwards. And that is particularly why I work with introverts. And I always use the phrase leverage your introvert strengths. Because one of the key strengths of introverts is introspection. And you're able to actually look within. But it's also deep thinking. It means that when you look at things, you can also, introspection helps you to be also analytic and look at circumstances. So when people are saying, my reality does not fit my inner fire, and I don't see how I can move from the reality to what happens. So I'm definitely a person of faith. So we can say that helped. I believe that, faith doesn't always look at the outside. It looks at the evidence of your belief that something will work nicely. But I did plan over a 3-year period. So I didn't just say, oh, I'm leaving my job and I don't care if my husband says no. I don't care if my children have no food. I didn't say that. I always say I work on a 3-year rolling plan. And I have done that whether in business or in my life. So the moment I identify that there's a direction I want to go, I make sure that the way I answer fear is to make sure that everybody around me, including myself, feels comfortable and safe. So I know that there might be pain because some people are unhappy in their job and it's like you're sitting and howling in the pain. But what you then do is the hope of that change pushes you to put actions in place. So I started saving. I started looking at my finances. I started sowing the seed with my husband. I went for free coaching, certificate trainings. I was exploring, is this the right thing or is it a fatalistic risk to take? And the more evidence I gathered to convince my fear that I was being planned and I was taking deliberate actions, I got bolder and bolder and more confident. So even when it was time to take the leap, and my husband was like, well, you have done a lot to bring safety, to make sure that things are okay. The worst that could happen is it doesn't work. Initially he was like shocked that I wanted to do it. But when he looked at the journey I had made over time in planning, he was happy and said, let's give it a go. I know that you didn't just jump, you put thought into it, because he saw that I put thought into it. And I think it's very important when people want to do something. Sometimes you have to convince your own self of the viability of what you want to do. Sometimes love means you have to convince people. I'm not of the school of thought that you don't do that, but at the same time, don't let people stop you. It's a fine balance, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like that part because you're talking of planning. You're talking that everybody around you is somewhat safe, because sometimes when we want change, it's not just us that is in it. We have family, we have other responsibilities. And I think what was significant is actually taking and sharing that journey and vision with the people around you, saying to your husband, hey, this is what I want to do. He says, oh, have you looked into it? And you say, this is the evidence. So I think that's another lesson, because a lot of times we might get what you got when you saw that lady and say, this is where I want to be. But there's no in between. We go from 0 to 100. And of course, we don't develop wings on the way down and we crash. So there is the sort of listening, observing yourself, knowing what is physical, sort of putting your feet in the water a little bit at a time, which is the planning, doing all of that. I'm having a bit of problem today. I don't know what's going on. Planning, and then you can take other people with you. So people are not sort of thrown, or your life is not thrown in chaos because you have this 360 turn, which literally was what you did. Okay, so let's talk about introverts and extroverts. What are the major differences? Because people who are introverts think it's just them and that the world is full of extroverts. So can we have like generally what an extrovert is, what an introvert is, and then we can begin to talk about how the strengths and weaknesses of.
Well, I think in terms of introvert versus extrovert, introverts are regarded as people who focus on the inner thoughts and their inner rich world and get a lot of their stimuli from the inside. Whereas extroverts are regarded as people who are more excited and focused on the external world and get their stimulation from external environment. So introverts love small gatherings and less crowd, and extroverts are the opposite, where they thrive in crowds. And I think, like you said, introverts might be thinking, oh, it's just us, and then the world is full of extroverts. Now, that is a fact because 2/3 of the population is extrovert and 1/3 is introvert. So the world will, majority rules, I always say, and majority would have the environments around made purposefully for them. So if you think about it in business, if 1/3 of your business is certain way and 2/3 is another way, you probably will put all your energy in the 2/3.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how a lot of things are built around the world. So you have offices and they go, oh, well, most people would be happy with open plan. But open plan, there is noise and there are people. There are things that will affect an introvert, but an extrovert just copes with it. You can even add music to it and people doing a marching band through the office, they will function very well. But the introvert, suddenly, for me, they shut down. And it's an overwhelming thing because it's an external stimulus. But you do the opposite and you have the most quiet office with people keeping in cubicles and everything. And the extrovert is frustrated because they just want to go and have that natter and that chat. And do all those things. So, but when people think about who should they cater for more, you find that it's possible that because it's 2/3 of people that are that way, they will cater for extroverts more than introverts. So introverts have to probably make more effort and make more noise to be known, and even in the way meetings are handled and all. So those are some of the differences that I feel like happens, and you find yourself there. But if you're an introvert, you would struggle to say, I put up my hand, really, I don't think the way things are works, because you don't want to be the odd one out. And so you end up many times suffering in silence. Yeah.
Which
so
does usually, when an introvert is suffering, then they internalize the suffering, don't they? Yeah. And then it becomes, oh, it's me, not the outside world, because everything I see seems to be loud, having fun, they're reaching out to one another. And I just want to be inside and ruminate in the rooms of my mind and maybe sometimes dream. So what are useful tips for an introvert in an extrovert world?
It's interesting you say. Now, I feel like my whole family, I'm one of 8, are introverts, but it's varying degrees, because I remember that I think I was quite an extreme one, because imagine that you have 8 kids and 10 people. My environment was already full of people and 2 parents. It was 10 people, even without, and being African, it means that we had a lot of people come around us a lot and spend time. So my environment was always full of people. And I remember my younger brother one day coming into the room where I had switched off the light and I was just finding that space to hide. And he was like, what? You've been in here all day? And I was like, yeah. It was like paradise to me. And he was like, this is odd. It's not normal. Why should you be in a room with no light sitting here? I said, I'm loving my life. I don't see it as odd, but you might be, he said, you are really odd, you know. So basically, what I would say is I grew up that way. And even I remember in the university, one friend of mine, a male friend, he said to me, what's in your room? And I said, what do you mean? He said, every time after lecture, your head is down and you are running somewhere. And I realized that you enter the hostel and you enter your room. So I'm asking you, what is in your room? So I said to him, I looked at him and I thought, if I tell you, would you? I said, peace and quiet away from you. That's what I said in my mind. I said, peace and quiet away from you. But then I said, well, nothing in my room. I just like spending time in my room. But all that time, I didn't know I was introverted.
Mm-hmm.
So as time went on and I came to the UK and I started work, again, I found myself, when it's too much, I kind of want to withdraw. My body is hot, my head is banging, but I can't say, oh, let me disappear. Do you get what I'm saying? Because people will be thinking, she doesn't want to join us. And everybody wanted to go out for lunch break and sit together on the table and keep talking. And you're auditing, you've spoken to 10 people in the day, and your colleagues are saying, use the only 1 hour, you shouldn't talk to people, to come and have a natter. So what did I do? With that coaching and with a lot of help with identifying myself as an introvert, I had the gift to say, I give myself permission to be introverted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if the world accepts it or not, but I'm not going to survive it because I was having migraines. I was really struggling with not taking that, and it was affecting me from a performance point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I started to say, ta-da, have lunch without me. It's great. I'll see you. And I would go out and I would just walk in quietness. I'll come back and I'll be all smiles and I'll be the real Patience. So the first thing I would say is you need to give yourself permission. The second thing I realized was I was self-loathing. Oh, why am I not like that person? Why am I not like this person? And that's why that coach said to me, if it's going to be, it's up to you. So I had to love who I am, not the party animal. Yes, so I'll be a party pooper. Do you want to put me on your list when I'll just sit and drink, or you want somebody that will be raving and making everybody dance? So I had to lose the fear and say, I offer myself grace to live my life as myself and to love myself. And over the years, so you have to, because if you don't like yourself, you can't nurture yourself. Nobody nurtures a person they don't like. And many introverts, because they find themselves not fitting in and thinking they have to fit in, then they don't necessarily like themselves. If you don't like yourself, others won't like you, right? So you have to work on that. You have to also recognize, I guess the third thing I would say is, the truth is that introverts, because we internalize a lot, can be more depressive than extroverts.
Yeah.
So when you recognize that, you have to build in strategies to help you with that internal world, purifying the internal world to be a happy place. If your mind is a sad place all the time, then your world, your external world, which is how you express, because the extrovert can go out and find things to be making them happy outside, but you get your happiness from inside. So your internal world, even though rich, can be a dark internal, richly dark world. So it's about making it a richly beautiful and happy world, giving yourself permission to fuel it in that way. And so I started doing things like reading the right things, listening to the right things, feeding that internal person that would help me build my self-esteem, build who I am up. So I think those are some of the things I would say.
One is giving yourself permission. I love that. Two, I think, takes a little bit of work, the self-loathing, because the world, or maybe even your nurturing, didn't help you anyway. And I was just going to go to that place of, being depressed. It's much easier if you are introverted, like you said, to go to that really dark place and to stay there. So it's actually what you've described is about being self-aware, which is what you're saying now. Get to know yourself. Give yourself permission. If you realize this is me, these are 3 ways. So I'm going to sort of quickly go to children. Yeah. Maybe fortunately in your house, people were all maybe introverts, but you would find that some people would have a really extroverted child that is happy, bubbly, wants to interact with the outside world, probably enjoys school. And then they'll have the other child that is introverted, which sometimes they might say, oh, the child is so sensitive. I hear that a lot, that the child is sensitive. But it's probably an introverted personality. So what might help a parent?
I think it's what I always say. You must recognize that the way that we thrive in the world is leveraging our strengths, leveraging the strengths that you have. And so if you recognize that you have 2 different people around you, the child that is extroverted and the one that is introverted, then you're going to say, how do I nurture the strengths? It's not, people focus a lot on the weakness. Oh, you're introverted, so you're not partying enough. But that introverted child can build a lot of creativity and be very expressive from a creative point of view when they have time to nurture that creativity. But because you want people, winning in the world is when you show up as your true self. You win, you thrive, because in a place where you find your space in the world, where you can represent yourself, and ultimately parents don't realize it because they compare. Oh, this person is a doctor, you've got to be, my own children have got to be a doctor. This person is a nurse, my children have got to be that. My children have got to do science rather than arts. It is very common for parents to do that. But once you recognize strengths, so the way I managed it for my kids, my son's 23 now, my daughter's 18. When my son initially was going to try to read medicine and he came out of school, did his biomed and was supposed to go on and do medicine. And he said, I didn't want to do it. Initially, I was upset. But I thought to myself, are you not a coach? When it comes home, it hurts. But when it's out there, you tell everybody else to do it. But when it comes home, it hurts. So he was actually more worried about myself because my husband was like, well, he doesn't want to do it. But I was like, no, you've taken a career path. So when he came home, I decided to use my coaching skills. And I did his DISC personality. And we sat down and had a chat. I was so grateful I did not push him in that direction, because what he then decided to do was to move on into something that used his strength. He's very analytically minded. He didn't want to be locked up in a room. So he wanted to work with analytics, look at figures and everything. And he would have gone on a different path. That's totally 2 different things. And I was just glad that I said, okay, since this is not what you did in school, let's work on amplifying this strength, on building it. What can you build it with? And what consequently came out was his first interview had 3 stages. He only did 1 because they just said, we want you, just come work, and he was thriving in workplace. Is that not what we all want for our children? So what I would say in summary to the question you asked is, look at the strengths that you can amplify and build in your children, because ultimately it's not about comparing them to be the same. It's about helping them win in life. And that comes from nurturing their strengths.
Okay. So you sort of gave me where I was going already. What is a DISC?
So DISC is it is a personality profiling tool. There are many out there. You've got Myers-Briggs. You've got another one that I hear about called Human Design. But DISC is the one I'm trained in, and specifically trained and licensed to provide under the John Maxwell team. So DISC is all about having 4 different personality types that can be built into several combinations. So you have The D stands for somebody who is determined, who is dominant, who some people will classically call a leader. So dictatorship, for example. And then you have an I. An I is very inspirational, very many times introspective. And I'm an I. And when your I is high, the more high you. But also, this I personalities have leadership qualities. Then you've got the S. S are social. They're stable, and they like stability. So somebody was saying, "Oh, introverts are those to champion change." I said, actually, no. I introvert will champion change. An S introvert would just say, no, I don't feel comfortable. So that's where you look at, apart from just looking at, are you introverted? You have to look at the other side, which is this personality types within it. You have to also look at temperaments and all those kind of things, which are the combination of the work that I do. So the C, which is the final one, is you are cautious and you're calculative. So my son that I talked about is a high C. He likes analytics, he likes the detail. And so while eyes are very bigger picture, my son focuses on the detail, the detailed element. And so that's what DISC is. So DISC. And it helps to look at your strengths. It helps to look at your leadership, your communication. It helps with relationships. Yeah.
Okay. So that's sort of finding out who you are, which part of the spectrum you are, and what your abilities, your giftings are. So what happens with our weaknesses? Because we've highlighted a lot on the strengths just in that DISC part. So if I discover my weakness, because I think let's even use something like procrastination, which might be in some personalities, either they're perfectionists and that actually hinders them. So let's even use that as an example. So what happens to our weaknesses? I guess we discover them when we do these personality type questions. So how do we manage them better? Because we can't just say, that's the way I am. That's what, that's where I'm going to leave it. Actually, I have a professional who's told me these are my weaknesses. So, we're staying with them.
Yeah. So I think they say if you make excuses for your weaknesses, you get to keep them. So basically, an awareness of where you are not functioning according to, and sometimes weaknesses are relative, isn't it? Because it can be about the environment, about what you want to achieve. So a perfectionist, as a medical doctor, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, because you don't want to leave the scissors in the person. You want to make sure that the stitches are well done. So you're not going to say done is better than perfect as a doctor. So I just want to stitch him up. As long as there are 5 stitches instead of 12 stitches, that is okay. You don't want to say that. But if you think about perfectionism in terms of getting the figures right for the balance sheet or for the profit and loss account, that has an impact in the big scheme of things. So sometimes you've got to look at it then from the point of view of, if you then came home and insisted that somebody else should be as perfect as you, then your perfectionism becomes a problem. So what I always tell people is that sometimes you need to reframe your weakness. But also the way to look at it is, if you amplify your strengths, your weaknesses over time can become insignificant. And that is because where you can always delegate your weaknesses. So one of the things I didn't say that really made a difference when I started doing this was I realized that I became an accountant because the story is that I actually signed up to read medicine. And that relates to helping people, working with people. At the core, I always knew that was where my strength lies, in working with people. But I looked at 7 or 8 years of medicine versus 4 years of accounting, and I was what you call fairly brainy. So I could do the combination of courses allowed me to do many things. So I did accounting. But guess what? In doing my disc, for you to be a great accountant and to thrive at it, your C has to be quite high, or your C has to be good. My C is not the dominant part of my personality. So for me to be enjoying that kind of environment over the long term, it's a salvation to go into places where I can look at the world more as a visionary. That's why I call myself a visionary, because I'm a more bigger picture, high eye person. So basically, figures are not necessarily my weakness. Why? Because I was able to train in an environment where it mattered. So that tempered any weakness. But at the core, that's not a career path for me. So weaknesses are not, it's not all straightforward in that sense. When I work with people, is saying, okay, focus on your strength first, because you can be overwhelmed by just focusing on your flaws, your weaknesses, what you can't do. Whereas what really strengthens you and causes you to progress is what you can do first. And that then helps you to then manage your weaknesses a lot better, because you can delegate people to do many things in their own strength zone that are what you call your weaknesses.
Okay, so I think we've been, I've sort of, that's really clear, and we've been round sort of.
Female entrepreneur, it's entrepreneur, right? It's not female boss, it's boss. Why should you put the word female in front of it? A boss is a boss. Do they have to be male or female identified? And sometimes it says, there's this thing that made me laugh, where they said, oh, when a man is a mister, wherever they go, but a woman has to either be a miss to identify whether she's married or not, or a Mrs. Why is it so? Why shouldn't a man also
men
be?
Are more, life is more constant for men. We are
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I have lived as a woman, and so I feel like it's not that I can't work with men and understand men. Thankfully, I'm married. I have a son, so I do have but I feel like I can thrive more and use my lived experiences to help women. And then entrepreneurship, I would say that I've always loved the fact of being able to build something of my own that empowers others and gives other people income. So the ultimate goal for me with entrepreneurship is that I help people to actually be empowered, make money and earn money, and actually pay people to do work and give them a living. So being passionate, when you focus on the areas of passion, you serve with excellence, service comes, if they say, if you love what you do and do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yes.
So, as I can presume, you are not working. This is what you enjoy doing. It's part of
Yes.
the service you give, and my mentor, John Maxwell, says, find something that even if people did not pay you, you will do it. Wake up and do it. Then go and do it and get paid for it. So that is how I came about working with women. The introvert side came about more last year, when I was looking to say, apart from just working with every woman, because I can't deal with every woman's pain point. I can't deal with every woman's aspiration. What is it about myself that I can use to bring to the table, that I can develop expertise and feel that I'm passionate about, to continue to grow in that area, to offer service? And for me, that is introverted women, introverts who want to overcome self-doubt like myself, self-loathing, anything that is standing as a block. I have applied strategies. I have understood my own misalignment and found alignment. And I found my voice where I didn't have any, and stopped shrinking back and putting myself forward. Those are the things I can say, come and take from my experience, come and take from my pain. Is about using my pain for gain that multiplies it to gain in terms of for others. So that is why I work with introverted female entrepreneurs and leaders.
Okay. So tell us where we can find you. And I know when we spoke, you talked about doing master classes and all of that. So talk a little bit about how an introverted woman who is listening can come. She's probably looked at you and said, okay, that's where I want to be. So let us know how you put it together and where people can find you and come for coaching. And I imagine that you don't only coach women. This is just a niche area in the coaching that you do.
Well, if men say, I want coaching and it's you that fits it, I wouldn't say, oh, go away. I don't think money or a good dream client has that. A dream client who is willing, who sees value, because when people come to you as clients, it's because they see the value you have to give them. But I definitely focus because it helps with marketing, it helps with messaging when you have a focus and you're speaking directly to that person to draw them in. So, and I speak to people all through on LinkedIn where we connected. I speak to people on Facebook, but you know, and I have my website as well. So I'm on all the social media platforms, so you can connect with me. I have a YouTube channel as well, and I have a group, a Facebook group called the Introverted Female Entrepreneur Community, where people can come in and gain more support as a community of like-minded, like personality people, introverts. So we tend to cater for your introversion, basically. So that is on Facebook. And by the end of the month, I'll be doing a challenge as well as a masterclass afterwards. So joining the group means that you can take part in that. So just connect with me and connect with Lydia. Ask her, where can I find Patience? And whatever links are shared, you know, we can always connect and I can help you.
All right, so I'm sure your master classes are full, so people have to hurry up so that, I mean, if they join you or follow you on social media, then they can know when you're running classes.
Yes,
and
yes.
able to join. So as I ask everybody, what are you going to leave us with today?
So one of my key phrases that I always use, I guess I'll leave with two things, is to say, be willing to leverage your introvert strengths to build an aligned life, a life that suits you, and business so that you can thrive. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second one is a phrase I've always used. I've always said, impossible is an opinion. So feel free to disagree and carve out your own path to success. Feel free to disagree if somebody says it's impossible. They say, attributed to Mandela, who said, it always feels impossible until it is done. Then everybody says, wow, so it can be done. So that is what I'll leave people with, is what seems impossible because everybody is saying it. Feel free to disagree and test out for your own pathway. Your ideas deserve to be seen, deserve to be brought to life. That's why you are here, to live out a purposeful life. So I want to thank people for listening and for you for having me on your show today.
You're so welcome. I'm sure people have learned a lot about themselves today. Thank you. Thank you, Patience. Thank you for your time. And
thank you very much.
Insight. And continue to do what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. What a wonderful insight into introverts. I know when the pandemic started, I read this thing that every extrovert should contact an introvert and see how it's done, this sort of staying indoors and being happy. We've learned to feel your fear, know what your strengths are, develop them, and your strengths will really, your weaknesses will pale into insignificance. We've learned to plan. We've learned to fall and then grow our wings. Thank you for watching again. My name is Lydia Khalil, and I will see you next week.
LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, C Love World, lcbntv.com, lifecomtv.com.